The Royal Enfield Bullet nameplate has been in continuous production for nearly a century, which is a staggering statistic if you think about it in today's fast-paced world where humanity just can't hop from one trend to the next fast enough. Now, over the years, there have been various different iterations of the Bullet with varying cubic capacities, and the one we have with us today is the largest of them all. It's the new Bullet 650 Twin. Now, while the Bullet 650 is technically an all-new motorcycle, is it realistically any different to its siblings to ride? Now, one of the strongest reasons to get a neo-retro motorcycle is the way it looks, and I'm happy to report that the Bullet 650's design is one of the strongest reasons and one of the strongest pull factors that will attract you towards this machine. It looks gorgeous. It's got that typical Royal Enfield Bullet sort of signature. You've got this boxy rear fender, a stepped single-piece seat, a nice tubular grab rail. They're all very Bullet-specific trademarks, and one of the best ones are these hand-painted pinstripes. There are two colors of the Bullet 650. One is this stealthy black color, which has been a Bullet hallmark for quite a few years. And there's another blue color. I'm partial to the blue. You let me know which is your favorite color of the Bullet in the comment section below. However, one thing I find just a little bit puzzling is that Royal Enfield calls this bike the Bullet, but it doesn't have the signature Bullet tail lamp design. Instead, it uses the same round tail light as the classic 650. On a bike that's already so similar to the classic, that Bullet tail lamp would have actually gone some way to differentiate two motorcycles that are already so similar. I also think Royal Enfield should have stuck to halogen units for the pilot lights and the headlight on the motorcycle, because this is a machine that relies so heavily on nostalgia for its very existence. And there's also a couple of functional reasons. The thing is, this Royal Enfield LED headlight, it's the same one that you'll see on pretty much every single motorcycle except for the lower variants of the Hunter and the Bullet 350. It's a rather average unit at best, and the illumination it provides is nothing to write home about. The halogen headlight that earlier Royal Enfields used to come with was actually very nice to use. And another thing, I am actually the custodian of a 1975 B1 Bullet, and the look that those iconic tiger eyes, the pilot lights and the headlight, the ones in halogen, the look they give you is really very endearing. I might be on a bit of a rant here, but for somebody who's so familiar with the Bullet's history, this is an especially pertinent point. Now, in true Bullet fashion, in true Royal Enfield fashion if you would, this is a simple machine. There's no unnecessary farkles and gizmos over here. You've got everything that you need, however. The tripper pod shows you navigation in a turn-by-turn fashion. It's not very distracting. The digi analog display shows you all the pertinent information, and you have a slipper clutch. This simplicity is appreciated, and actually it's a little bit endearing in today's overly complicated day and age. While there are a great many similarities between the classic 650 and the Bullet 650 in terms of the riding experience, we'll point out the two small but crucial similarities first. The first is that this handlebar, it might look very similar to that of the classic, but there's a slightly different way in which it curves towards the rider. Where the classic has a handlebar position that kinks your hands just a little bit, it's not a problem for me, but it has been for some other people. The Bullet 650 keeps your hands perfectly neutral, perfectly upright. And as you can see, the riding position is really quite nice. This is a comfortable, neutral, upright riding position. It's just what you'd expect from a neo-retro roadster, and it's a comfortable riding position for long days in the saddle. Then the second difference between the classic and the Bullet 650 is this well-padded stepped seat. Now, this stepped seat is actually very nice. I prefer it to the split seat setup of the classic 650, and this actually helps improve ride comfort, but we'll come to that in just a minute. What I want to actually highlight about the ergonomics of the Bullet 650 is that now the Bullet has a 800mm seat height. Now, on paper, that seems like a pretty approachable number. However, what you do need to be mindful of is this wide engine. It simply splays your legs out too far. I am 5'11" and I'm just about able to get my feet flat on the ground, and I'm sure that for shorter people this is going to be a problem, especially considering the heft and the bulk of the Bullet 650. This is a 243 kilo motorcycle. It's actually 6 kilos heavier than the BMW R1300 GS adventure bike. It's no lightweight, and for shorter people this heft and size will be an important factor to consider. In general, the riding dynamics and the engine character and behavior of the Bullet 650 is very similar to that what you'll find in the classic 650. Now, the engine, the Royal Enfield twin-cylinder engine, it's really one of the best engines that you can get at this price point. It's really the star of the show. It's smooth, it's characterful, it's torquey, it makes a nice sound. In fact, let me give you a listen. Truth be told, the handling is actually fairly respectable for a machine of this size. I know I dinged it a little bit earlier, but you'll only really feel the weight at slower and walking speeds. You can't really hustle this bike around like say a KTM 390, don't let me give you that impression. You can take gentle corners at a pretty respectable pace for this machine, but you can never shake off the fact that this is a fairly heavy bike, and if you are looking at this machine, it's just one of those things that you're going to have to deal with. Given the heft of this bike, I'm happy that Royal Enfield has given it sure-footed and strong brakes, and you've got the safety net of dual-channel ABS. One aspect of the brakes to point out is that just like the Classic 650, the Shotgun 650 and the Super Meteor 650, you've got a huge 300mm rear disc brake. While that is genuinely helpful on a machine with this longer wheelbase and this much heft at every single touch point, you've got to bear in mind that the rear brake actually is a little too sharp. When you first press the brake, the rear wheel locks up momentarily. It can do that sometimes before the ABS actually kicks in. It's not really unsettling once you get used to it, but that is something to bear in mind. What I want to talk about actually, what is one of the biggest differences between the Classic 650 and the Bullet 650 in terms of its riding experience is actually the ride comfort. Now, we've all lamented about how stiff the Royal Enfield rear suspension game has been on most of the 650cc lineup, and that holds true to some extent over here. However, where the Bullet has a mitigating factor is the thickly padded step seat. I really like the seat on the Bullet 350 in comparison to the Classic 350, and even for the bigger Bullet and Classic, I find the seat on the Bullet to be more comfortable than the Classic. Now, it's not like a day and night difference. When you go over bigger bumps, you are still going to feel a shock, and on Mumbai's roads, you really can't get away from the fact that you are on a stiffly sprung motorcycle. However, in comparison to the Classic, the Bullet has a noticeably better ride quality, and it's not a day and night difference again, but it's a tangible difference. Now, between the Shotgun, the Classic 650, the Super Meteor 650 and the Bullet 650, all of which have the same chassis architecture more or less with just a few cycle paths differing between them, I think the Bullet 650 is the best riding bike of them all, and that does count for something. And speaking of comfort, with its torquey twin-cylinder engine and these neutral upright ergonomics, if you didn't encounter too many bad roads on your journey, this would actually be a wonderful long-distance touring machine. And honestly, I could make my peace with the ride quality for once, but what would be the biggest deterrent to me when I would take the Bullet 650 out on a longer ride would be its tube tires. Tube tires are the norm in the neo-retro segment. Even the Triumph Bonneville T120, which is a 13-14 lakh rupee on-road motorcycle, even that bike comes with tube tires. But the trouble with the tube tires is that, especially on this bike, let me show you what I'm talking about. So, to fix a puncture on a bike with a tube tire, you first need to remove the wheel, replace a tube, then put on the tire, and then the wheel goes back in. Now, Royal Enfield has decided to make your life that little bit harder because this is the axle nut which you'll have to loosen, and there is exactly enough space for one finger of mine to fit in between the right exhaust pipe and the axle nut. I'm not sure how you would remove the axle nut with the exhaust still in place, and if not both, you'd have to remove at least one of the pipes before you fix the puncture. At best, it's going to take you at least an hour, and that number only keeps going upwards if the mechanic you found isn't very experienced with these sort of motorcycles. And while I am complaining, I want to also ding Royal Enfield for not giving this bike a heel shifter. This and the Classic 650 would have been the perfect bikes to have heel shifters, like the Classic 350 and the Bullet 350. It just puts you in that neo-retro state, that zen state of mind. You know, you just upshift with the heel shifter, downshift with the toe shifter. It's a really missed opportunity, and when the Super Meteor gets it, Royal Enfield, why haven't you gone the full 9 yards for the Bullet 650 and given it the proper neo-retro treatment? And honestly, between the Classic 650, the Shotgun 650 and the Bullet 650, there are very, very minute differences in terms of the riding experience. If you were to, hypothetically speaking, ride the three of them blindfolded, I don't think you could tell one from the other. This bike just feels a little too anonymous for its own good. All said and done, the Royal Enfield Bullet 650 is likely to be a heart-over-head purchase in the Indian market at least because of its size, specific compromises and asking price. At 3.64 lakh rupees, this is the most affordable machine based on the Super Meteor chassis architecture, and both of the colors, the blue and the black, both cost the same. This is also the same price as the starting colors of the classic 650, and in my opinion, the Bullet 650 is the most comfortable machine based on the Super Meteor chassis architecture. Now, there is genuine promise within the Bullet 650. It's not all doom and gloom like I may have pointed out in the video, but if Royal Enfield can endow it with some unique identity of its own and make the tubeless tyre option available sooner rather than later, there is potential for the Bullet 650 to be a genuinely likable and strong appeal modern classic. Get it?